Like, there's been speculation, and he'd say it's taken a lot of work, and I think that's...
Tap and go! Mike Brown takes it quickly. France not 10, surely. Mike Brown not tackled yet.
This will be my last season, but equally it's been extremely humbling and emotional at times, because a lot of people have had I'm proud to have contributed.
Youngs. Ben Youngs between the posts and over. No need for the TMO this time. Nigel Owens awards the try.
Towards what we've won and what this club has done. And, you know, I've got one more crack.
2 years ago, but I mean, it coincided, of course, with your Leicester career, most capped player.
And it's honestly an honour to play here, and I think it's a very difficult place to leave. That gives you a little bit of reflection, you know, like, you know, kind of take stock of. You respect those guys so much, you know.
And turn this over. They have. Ben Youngs comes away with it, and they have a real chance here. Ben Youngs still going. Youngs into George Ford. Ford weaving up to within 5 metres, 6 metres. Anthony Watson. Ben Youngs. Oh, Youngs clean through. Perhaps lead player of the first half gives the pass. George Ford. Oh, it's an extraordinary game on an extraordinary day.
Why did you keep his heart problems to himself? What is the story behind the story? Why did he come back after what he had gone through? Why did his teammates stay in the dark? Let's find out. The answer wasn't just grit, glory, or the roar of the Twickenham crowd. It was something much harder. A silent, private war with his own heart. A battle fought behind closed doors, away from the cameras, away from even some of his closest teammates. And when the truth finally came out, it wasn't just a comeback. It was something that shocked the entire rugby world. You know, the highlights, the sidesteps, the darts through tight gaps, the perfectly timed passes. But what if I told you that some of Ben Youngs' greatest moments came after the moment everything could have ended? This is the untold story.
And all you want is, could I give it what it needs to do what we do? Can I give it everything that it's taken to so far? And I just, everything like that. And the one that we did in 21 was remarkable, really. Retiring, but there's other players that are leaving, you know, Andre Pollard, you know, Julian Montoya, of course, Michael Check.
If you did, as I mentioned, you have so much rugby to play, but if you did have to pick one memory from England and your club career, so talk to me about, you know, when you were a teenager and you joined the club, you know, 18 years ago. I mean,
in terms of the standards that you want to be a part of and set. And I guess that's probably what catches up on you. And then in terms of Leicester, I don't think it gets anything better than lifting that trophy at the end of the season in front of your crowd. And
especially during your time here, but you will join that list if not already part of.
Ben Youngs has always been the dependable one. The guy with the steady hands, the calm mind, not the flashiest, but never the weakest link. He made his England debut at just 20 and for the next decade seemed almost unshakable. But all that changed during what was supposed to be a routine medical check. One of those box-ticking procedures before the season starts. Scans, blood, pressure, the usual poking and prodding. Only this time, something didn't look right. Doctors spotted irregularities in his heartbeat. Not enough to cause alarm immediately, but enough to send him for more tests. Then came the news no athlete wants to hear. Ben had developed a rare cardiac condition, not immediately life-threatening, but if untreated, it could end his playing career. Or worse, and here's the shocking part, no one outside the medical team and his closest family knew, not the press, not the fans, not even many inside the England camp. For months, Ben played on, carrying a secret most would crumble under. While rugby pundits debated his form, questioned his speed, or said he'd lost his edge, the truth was much darker. Ben was hiding a battle that had nothing to do with confidence or fitness. His own heart was becoming a risk, a ticking clock in his chest. Rumours swirled. Ben Youngs isn't quite himself. Maybe he's past his peak. Few considered that he was showing up every match day, unsure whether his body would cooperate, and yet he never flinched, never pulled out. Match after match he played, no headlines, no excuses. Bloke probably had more secrets than a pub landlord on a Saturday night. His teammates started to notice small things. He'd tire quicker during training. Sometimes he'd drift after halftime, unusually quiet. But Ben kept the mask on. When finally confronted, he downplayed it, calling it just a bit of a flutter. But behind closed doors, the condition was getting worse. By the end of the season, doctors gave him a clear choice: surgery. Soon.
So what does it mean to you?
I think some weekends off, and plan things. I think my wife's looking forward to that and the kids.
I mean, what are the, if you don't mind sharing, just some of the standouts and maybe some that, have really touched your heart in that sense?
It'd be very, very pleased, and if I could do it all again, I would. I really would.
And just talk to me about Leicester Tigers in terms of 5 Premiership titles.
So I think, any victories we've had lifting the trophy for Leicester's been up there, definitely. Every other week, we run out of here and the place is packed, and the enthusiasm they have for this club is infectious.
During your England career as well, I mean, how do you reflect? First of all, how has the last 24 hours been for you?
Retirement wasn't a word Ben was ready to say. Not when he'd spent his life pouring everything into the game. Not when there was more to prove. Not just to fans, but to himself. Still, the decision wasn't simple. Heart surgery isn't like fixing a shoulder or tweaking a hamstring. It meant going under, risks, recovery, and no guarantee he'd ever set foot on the pitch again. Even worse, he'd have to disappear from the sport temporarily without a story to feed the media machine. So he made a call few would dare. He chose to do it. Quietly, privately. Only a handful of people knew. No interviews, no goodbyes. No press outside the hospital. No Rugby World holds its breath headlines. Inside, it was a different story.
Leicester is just your home for your career.
Look, I think, you always get...
You've got so many messages over the last 24 hours, and I'm sure from all around the world.
And my brother.
Ben Youngs lay on the operating table with one thought, not about retirement, or legacy, or even family. He later told a friend, in confidence, "I was more afraid of losing the jersey than losing the game." The operation was delicate, time-consuming, a cardiac procedure tailored to fix irregular electrical patterns in his heart, with millimeter precision.
In an England shirt, I think, England, I'm really lucky that I've got some great men. Yeah, everyone's been extremely kind and reaching out, and, I think that's when you can't say.
What came next was a test of every ounce of discipline Ben had ever built in his career. When you're known as a warrior, recovery is a test of ego as much as the body. Ben couldn't train, couldn't run, could barely do light cardio for weeks. The man who once dominated Six Nations clashes was now counting steps around his garden. He didn't speak to press, didn't share updates on social. All he said publicly was that he was taking time off for health reasons, but behind the scenes, he was already planning the comeback. His rehab team said he showed up early and left late. Bit by bit, the fire returned, not with fireworks, but with repetition, quiet determination. Ben knew he'd be judged the second he stepped back on the pitch, so he prepared like it was his debut all over again. When he finally joined his team, again, even the coaches were cautious. No contact, no sprints, just light drills. But Ben had other ideas. By week 3, he was already pushing to take part in full contact simulations. His doctors objected, his coaches hesitated. Ben didn't.
That's the thing, I think, when I first turned up, you get your
titles, and as you mentioned, highs and lows, and you talked about the legends they've produced.
Our place to leave, and it's a great place to play, and that's why it attracts players from all over the world. So, I think a lot of the guys from across the world, really, other nines that I played against for so often, and very nice things to say about me, which is strange, when it's sort of about you for sort of 24 hours. But
assistant coach said he came back with eyes like fire. Every movement had intent, every drill precision. The doubters started to quiet down. Teammates watched in awe. This wasn't just a return, this was a transformation. One coach joked, came back playing sharper than a tack at a pub quiz night. Suash, comeback match wasn't announced with fireworks. Ben was named quietly in the squad sheet. No press conference, no bold claims, but those who watched, they saw something different. He didn't just look ready, he looked renewed. Faster reactions, sharper decisions, strategic, smart rugby. In the 62nd minute, he delivered a pass that split two defenders and led to a try. It wasn't flashy, but it was pure Ben Youngs. Calculated, effective, ruthless in its timing. Fans started saying, "Is this the old Ben?" But some said, "No, this is an upgraded Ben." Ben Youngs didn't return to prove a point. He returned because it's what he does. You fall, you get back up. You train when no one's watching. You prepare like the game is always 1 week away. What followed his return wasn't just a run of matches, it was a quiet dismantling of every assumption people had made about him. The critics who said he was too slow. They saw him outpace younger players in line breaks. The ones who claimed his decisions had dulled. They watched him pull strings like a chess master, 4 moves ahead at all times. He wasn't just doing his job. He was controlling tempo, setting traps, and managing energy like a field general with nothing to lose. Some fans still didn't know he'd had surgery. They just assumed he'd hit form again. But for those who were in the know, the coaches, the physios, the teammates, every pass, every sprint, every tackle carried extra weight. It was like watching someone play with house money. There was a looseness to his game, but not carelessness. Precision without tension. The kind of performance that can only come when you've faced down the end and chosen to return anyway. England noticed. His minutes increased, his leadership role deepened. New caps looked to him not just for tactics but for presence. When the game was on the line, it was Ben calling the shape, calming the nerves, delivering the final pass. His experience was no longer a stat, it was a weapon. In the locker room, younger players talked about him like a quiet legend. He didn't give speeches, he didn't demand the spotlight. He just showed up, nailed the execution, and...
It's okay, turn over.
First match, he had controlled 70 minutes of play with the calm ruthlessness of someone who knows exactly how much time he has left in the sport and isn't wasting a second of it.
Just enough time to buy himself a yard or two. Matador top. He's done it again against Australia. Their replacement in the first half.
Become more dangerous by removing everything unnecessary. A few pundits finally caught on. They started using words like mature and complete. But the truth was, Ben had always been those things. The difference now was that he'd stripped away every reason to play cautiously. His comeback wasn't about redemption. It was about presence. There was one match, a wet, brutal affair against France, where Ben took more hits in one half than most scrum halves take in a month. It wasn't about being a hero, it was about never letting the story end with doubt. In private, he later said the fear didn't disappear after surgery, it just got quiet enough to move forward. He knew the risks hadn't vanished, they'd just become manageable, but the difference was this: now he wasn't playing to escape fear, he was playing to express freedom. That shift changed everything. The coaching staff began redesigning systems around his strengths. Younger scrum halves stopped trying to outshine him and started learning from him. He became the living blueprint of how to extend a career, not by playing safer, but by playing smarter. Every session he showed up to, he sharpened others around him, not with big speeches, just with consistent, grounded excellence.
Yeah, look, I think I'll find some passion into what I do next. I think nothing's ever, and we've had plenty of lows as well. You know, we've had years where we've been towards the bottom, but no, I think it's a very hard with Leicester and England, to be honest with you. But I feel like I've retired twice, because 23 obviously stepped away after the World Cup, and I think that's something to be said as well. Like, I'm very proud of that, and yeah, they've been terrific. They've been terrific. It felt like that. I just felt like the right time is now.
Stories behind the scenes began to leak out slowly. The times he stayed after training to help a rookie 9 learn the system. The sessions he quietly turned up for when he wasn't required. The way he'd walk into pressure games with the same unshakable demeanour, like a man who had already made peace with whatever would happen on the field. Teammates would talk about him not like a star, but like a backbone. Something you didn't always notice until it wasn't there, and then came the end. Not the end of his quality, that never dipped, but the end of the chapter. The moment all athletes eventually face. Retirement. He didn't announce it mid-season. Didn't make it a farewell tour. He waited, quietly, played his last home game, spoke to the coaches, spoke to his family. Then when the dust settled after his final England appearance, 127 caps in, he simply let it be known. That was it.
But it's been lovely. A lot of former teams, but yeah, they kind of all roll into one. And like I say, I'm full of contentment and I'm very proud.
The reaction was massive, not because he demanded it, but because the rugby world knew what it had just lost. A player who had given everything and asked for nothing. A man who had defined professionalism in an age of personalities. Coaches, legends, fans, they all paid tribute. Not just to the longevity, but to the way he carried it. No drama, no self-promotion, just craft. The interviews that followed weren't nostalgic, they were honest. Ben spoke about family, about the grind, about loving the process even when it was brutal. He admitted there were dark days, times when the jersey felt heavier than he could carry, but he also said those moments were the making of him. Not because they made him tougher, but because they made him clearer. One moment stood out. In a post-retirement conversation, he was asked what he was proudest of, not the wins, not the Grand Slams, not even the World Cup campaigns. He paused, then smiled and said,
that kind of grinds you down. Well, I found basically. So yeah, but he would be opportunities or people potentially turning your head. But for me, you know, it's a privilege.
On your times at England and, you know, your favourite memories for England as well.
Yeah, like it sort of all rolls into one. What I go and do next, you know. So I think the time.
Still showing up, even when I didn't feel like it. That's the bit I'll miss most. That's Ben Youngs, the ultimate professional in a game that demands everything. In the months after retirement, he didn't disappear. He leaned into mentorship, started helping youth systems, gave time to grassroots clubs. He didn't post about it, just turned up, the same way he always had. You talk to young players now and they say things like, "He's who I watched to learn the basics." Coaches use his match tape as a teaching tool.
Rob Carney in support. Young start.
Changed what it meant to be a modern scrum half. Not with reinvention, but with refinement. Not by chasing the spotlight, but by elevating the team. And he did it through every era of English rugby for over a decade. New coaches came and went, game plans changed, the sport evolved. But Ben Youngs remained, adjusting, adapting, and delivering. What makes his story powerful isn't just the comeback after surgery or the trophies or the records. It's the mindset, the ability to keep showing up, keep growing, keep contributing, even when no one's cheering. Especially then, there are louder players, flashier ones, but few who command the respect he does. And not because he asked for it, but because he earned it. That's what real greatness looks like in rugby. And that's why when people talk about England's modern greats, they'll say his name not with noise, but with reverence. Ben Youngs didn't just play rugby, he embodied it. And in doing so, he didn't just earn 127 caps, he earned something rarer. The total respect of everyone who truly understands this game.
Rolls the dice with the reverse pass.
Goal and a chance for England with Youngs. Little switch pass, Vunipola again.
I think he thought he was in as he goes through the gap. Young.
For reflection will come. It's not quite there yet. But
Please talk about that in a moment. But just talk to me about the process of deciding left to play. But I just wonder, how special does it feel? Because in team sport,
you know, how did you keep the consistency or achieve what you did and play unity to fully look back and take it all in and kind of, you have to use it to shape whatever. People keep asking me, what am I doing? So it's nice to sort of share the news that they're seeing some freedom and having some weekends. I'll be able to plan. I'll be able to have bank holidays.
you know, looking forward to them.
I think not everyone gets that opportunity. You know, some people is forced through injuries and things like that. So again, like that's you know.
So far.
Yeah.
Well, what would you pick and why?
I think England has to be playing first game. I'll walk away full of pride and contentment at the when the season finishes and the ink's dry.
Of course, and there's so much rugby left to play. But have you thought about a little bit what could be next in terms of where you might find that fulfilment, that in
7 weeks?
Absolutely, and of course you retired from England a few.
Teammates, current teammates, people I've played against, and fans have been terrific. So I really appreciate it.
Well, definitely.
For England, a lot of those guys have been in touch, sending me lovely messages, and like, you know, and I think you create bonds in rugby, but I don't think anything will replace that. But I'll take my time and I'll figure it out. I'll get back to you on that one.
Just on something you said.
I'll miss that pressure of expectation. I think that's one thing I'll definitely miss, is like pressure situations and moments, and that's okay. So I think the first thing you've got to do is accept that, and I did. Is respect from your peers and guys that you played against, and when you receive messages from them, it's been over. You know, I'm very fortunate that on both occasions that I've been able to walk away and retire on my own terms, and not anymore. It's, you know, it's a feeling that kind of grows over time.